Hey guys, it's Ant from SoulKite Kitesurfing School. We're here today to talk about site assessment. We've got a little acronym that we're going to use to help us work out whether this beach is suitable for us to go kitesurfing today. And it's surface, hazards, others, and environment. So shoot. Okay, so surface is going to be two parts. Okay, firstly, the area where we're going to set up our kite. So that area needs to be 25 meters of, free from anything that could potentially damage your kite on the beach. All right, so rocks, shells, glass, anything that could damage your gear. But also, I'm going to say that the area that we want that to be, where we're going to run out our lines on our kite, and most modern kites have got somewhere between 22 to 23 meters of lines plus the kite itself, so about 25 meters. And the best area for that to be is going to be right down next to the water's edge. The place that I want you to be standing when you're launching and landing your kite is going to be, as long as the water's deep, shallow enough that you can stand in it and launch and land your kite, is going to be out in the water. Okay. The reason for that is that something goes wrong when you're launching and landing your kite. You're going to go splash, rather than if you're standing on solid ground, then you go and thump. Right. So splash, much better than thump. So we're looking for an area that is 25 meters free of anything that's going to damage your gear, but also nice and close to the edge of the water. And then surface, secondly, is going to be the place where you're going to practice your kite surfing, so out on the water. What we're looking for when we're learning is reasonably flat, what we're going to call sea state, okay, or in this case, river state. All right, so absence of big waves, absence of what we call shore breaks, so those waves that dump onto the beach, okay? When you're learning to kite, you've got a lot of stuff going on. You've got the board, the kite, you're pretty involved with what's happening with those things. If you're adding waves and shore breaks and things like that to that, then it's just going to make it a lot more difficult than what it needs to be. Okay, so we're looking for reasonably flat water. A little bit of chop's okay, not a big issue, but yeah, you want to be staying away from the shore break. You want to be staying away from the waves. When you get to the point that you're out, in your beginner area and you're sort of going 100 meters in each direction and you're staying upwind and all that kind of stuff, then you can think about heading down to the beaches where you've got shore break and waves out the back. But take baby steps, all right? Go out on days where you've got reasonably shallow shore break, like ankle to knee deep high. And then, when you're comfortable with that, hip high shore break, when you're comfortable with that, chest high shore break. When you're going out through that chest high shore break, then you're probably at the point where you can consider to sort of start going out into waves out the back as well. All right, so baby steps, progression. All right, and then the second thing is going to be hazards. Okay, so hazards again is going to be twofold, right? It's the stuff around you on the beach that the kite could potentially end up dragging you into if something goes wrong and you lose control of that kite, right? So we want that area to be free of hazards, but specifically downwind of us from where we're launching the kite, Well, the wind is going to be always coming from your back when you're kite surfing, right? Your back's going to be into the wind and the kite's going to be downwind of you. And if for some reason you were to lose control of the kite, then the direction the kite's going to drag you is downwind. So when I'm setting up my kite on here on the beach, I want to be looking at, if I'm setting up here and walking out into the water to launch my kite, if something goes wrong and the wind is coming from this direction, then what I would need to look at is what's down here and how can I make myself, safest around those obstacles. Obviously, we want to give ourselves the largest area directly downwind, free of any obstacles, open space, right? So that if something was to happen and I did get pulled downwind by my kite, I'd have the largest opportunity to use the emergency safety release on the kite, make the kite safe so that I'm not getting dragged into obstacles. Second thing with obstacles, is going to be stuff out in the water. When you're learning to kite, you're going to be super fixated on that kite in the sky. You're going across the water, you're looking up at that kite and you're going, oh, this thing's amazing. But you're also super concentrated on, keeping that kite where you want it in the sky by using your control bar, which means you're not paying a huge amount of attention into what's coming towards you as you're going across the water. And it might be stuff just under the water's edge, like stuff like sandbars, rocks, reefs, things like that. If you come into contact with that, you're going to stop pretty suddenly. Ankles, knees, hips, elbows, wrists aren't going to be super happy about the fact that you're stopping suddenly, right? So how do we know out here where those things are if we haven't been to the beach before? Ask the locals, all right? So if you go up to another kite surfer on the beach, you're going to find that the majority of people on the beach that are kiters are going to be super friendly and, you know, more than sort of helpful in telling you, you know, that, oh, look, there's a sandbar out here, or there's some rocks out here, or something like that. Right? So what do we need to do with this information? When you're learning to kite, you're going to spend a period of time where you're going to be going downwind. Going across the wind and then eventually upwind is going to take, you know, some people a couple of days, some people a couple of weeks, some people a couple of months. It depends on how much you're getting out, you know, as to how fast your progression is going to go there. But you're going to spend a period of time where you're going progressively downwind. So if I was to come here today and I spoke to the local kite surfer and they said to me, look, Ant, there's some rocks just out here, or there's some sandbars just out here. So what I'd want to do is I'd go and set my kite up just downwind of where that area is, because we know as a beginner kite surfer, I'm going to spend time progressively going downwind. So that's going to take those out of the equation. There's no way that I'm getting to them because I'm not riding upwind yet. When you get to the point where you're riding upwind, then you need to take, you know, some other precautions around it, which is just going to be, you know, aware that they're there and staying away from. Next, we've got others. Okay, so firstly, others is going to be other kite surfers. Pretty intimidating being around other kite surfers when we're learning. You know, other kite surfers, more experienced kite surfers will come in close to you while you're kiting. You know, they don't know that you're a beginner, you know, until they've come past you probably a couple of times, and then hopefully they're going to go, oh yeah, okay, they're a beginner, I'm going to give them some room, right? But you know, when they're coming in close, you're like, oh, wow, okay, are they going to crash into me? Is my kite going to end up wrapped around their kite? What's going to happen here? And generally what happens is you end up crashing your kite because you're, you know, worried, right? So how do I come and sort of mitigate being in around lots of other kite surfers? You know, again, I know that as a beginner, I'm going to be spending time going downwind, all right? So if I come to the beach here today and, you know, I see a chunk of kiters here, but there's not many people over here, so I'll go and set myself up downwind. That's going to do two things, right? One, I'm not going to be too concerned about other people coming in around me because most of those guys are up here and they're staying upwind because they're advanced kite surfers, right? But it also means that because they've got their back to the wind and I've set myself up down here, it means that all the kite surfers are going to be able to see me. And if I get in trouble, lose control of my kite, something's going wrong, more than likely one of the more experienced kite surfers is going to come over and be able to help me out, right? Okay, so that's pretty cool. Others are going to be other people who are coming to the beach who aren't involved in wind sports, right? They're coming for a romantic walk on the beach, even though it's blowing 30 knots and, you know, they're getting sandblasted, or they're taking the dog for a walk on the beach, or, you know, they've just brought the kids down to the beach and they're going to build some sandcastles, right? Pardon me. So how do I mitigate, you know, those people's potential danger from my kite? When I'm coming to the beach, I'm introducing a potentially dangerous piece of equipment into the environment. Not only potentially dangerous for me because there's a risk of me being dragged into solid objects by the kite, but also, right, the other people on the beach. And it's not so much the kite that's dangerous to them, because modern kites weigh somewhere between about 2.5 and maybe 5 kilos, depending on, you know, how big and how old the kites are. The older kites were a little bit heavier materials. But the fact is that if you're walking along the beach and I crash my kite into you because I've lost control over it, there's not a lot of weight in the kite. So there's a, you know, a reasonable impact because the kite's moving at a decent speed. And you're certainly not going to be happy with me if I crash my kite into you. But you're not going to A&E with a broken arm because someone's crashed a kite into you in the beach, all right? What is dangerous with those kites is the lines. 4 lines on each of those kites, and those kite lines are somewhere between 250, 300 kilos up to 900 kilos of breaking strain on each of those lines. Right? So they're attached to me as the kiter, as I'm the anchor point for the kite. Okay, and on the other end is that kite that can move quite fast through what we call the wind window in the sky. Okay, now, if those lines were to come in contact with somebody, there's potential that the lines could cut them, it could burn them. But if the kite was to come down with, no tension in the lines, and somehow those lines end up wrapped around them, and then the kite, powered up, those lines would go tight across them. And, look, if it's people's faces or ears or, anything like that, don't even want to think about what the potential is for things to go wrong there. Okay. So when we're kiting, I said before, modern kites got somewhere between about 22 and 23 meters on pretty much every bar on the market these days. All right. So me as the anchor point for the kite, with the wind coming from behind me, there's an area where the kite can fly over the top of my head, and we're going to call this the edge of the wind window. That's 22 to 23 meters directly over the top of my head, and then over my shoulders at 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock. So if I was to take that same semicircle over the top of my head and draw it on a line directly downwind from me, that's the area that I'm going to call the drop zone. And it's where the kite could come down and crash onto the ground if I lost control of it, or say the wind is speed. Right? And all that area in between me and the edge of that drop zone is where those lines could come in contact with somebody. Okay, so if someone is coming, and I'm going to extend that drop zone from 22 to 23 meters out to about sort of 40 to 50 meters. If someone's coming towards my drop zone from that sort of extended zone, and we might call that like an alert zone, okay? If they're coming towards my drop zone, I need to think to myself, what do I need to do to make those people safe? So there's no potential for them to either get, hit by my kite when I lose control of it, or if I lose control of it, or wrapped up or come in contact with those lines under tension. So I've got 2 things I can do. One is that if somebody is over this side of my wind window, all right, the best thing for me to do is make sure my kite isn't over the top of their head. All right, so I'm going to fly my kite over to this side of the wind window, and then there's no way that I can, crash that kite onto them unless I, somehow I manage to steer the kite all the way across the wind window, which is highly unlikely. The kite normally under normal conditions will fall out of the sky on the side of the wind window that it is, and it will go and sit at the edge of the wind window. And in very light wind, it might come and sit directly downwind from me, okay? But it's very unlikely, unless I completely lose control, that I'm going to fly that kite all the way across to the other edge of the wind window and end up with that kite in contact with those people, okay? But also, as the anchor point for the kite, I'm able to move. So, say some family comes down today and I'm standing here having a chat on the beach with my mate, and my kite's sort of up in the sky here, and, some guys come and they set up to build some sandcastles directly downwind of me, all right? What I can do is I can walk downwind of where that party is. So now there's no way that the kite can fly upwind of me, okay? So I've made those people safe. But this is something that you also need to know as somebody who's coming to a kite beach, okay? When that person is flying a kite around you, you don't really know what their skill set is and what the likelihood is that they've got 100% control of the kite, right? So that area directly downwind of them for 25 meters is the area that you need to be very careful about being in. And ideally, you always want to walk around and outside of those people on a kite beach, that 25-meter area, okay, and keep yourself safe, right? Okay, cool. So that's other kites on the water and other people on the beach. And then we're going to move into environment. So environment is a couple of things that we need to think about again. Okay, so the first part is our personal equipment. Okay, very important to make sure that you've got the right gear. You're down south, you're in the middle of winter, you've got your 5mm wetsuit on, maybe you're in Europe or somewhere like that. You've got your hood, your beanie, your gloves, your boots, all that kind of thing going on. If you're up north and it's the middle of summer and it's lovely tropical weather, make sure you've got your hats, your sunscreen, your glasses, your rashies, all that type of stuff. Something cold to drink afterwards. But also environmentally, a really big thing that we need to look out for as kiters is storm fronts. Okay? So, look, it's just a big old bunch of black clouds and they're moving towards you, okay? You've seen this all your life, and what it means is, look, it's going to rain, right? But now what it means when you're a kiter is it's time to get off the water. Come in, land your kite, get that kite down before that storm front comes through. You know, right? Like, so what happens when a storm hits? The rain starts and then the wind goes crazy, right? And that's because all that wind, you've got the storm here, you've got a load of dense clouds with all that heavy air in there where all that rain is, okay? And then you've got the rain coming down here as well as the storm comes through. So there's a load of wind pushing this along, okay? It can't get through because of all the dense air where the rain is. So on this side of the storm, you might have been out here on the water on your 9-meter kite having a great time. It's 30 kilometers an hour, 15 knots of wind, you're doing some jumps, you're having the best day, right? But as that storm front comes through, and we don't get a lot of them here in Perth over summertime. Last year, I think I can count maybe 4 or 5 we had all summer. But there are a lot of places, especially on the East Coast or in Europe or in Asia, where you get a lot of these things. So you need to be aware environmentally what's going on around you, okay? So as that storm front comes through, you're out here on your 9-meter kite, and there was 30 kilometers an hour of wind. As this storm front pushes through, on the other side over here, there could be 50, 60, 70 kilometers an hour of wind. So most modern kites have a wind range for a beginner of somewhere between about 10 to 15 kilometers. For an expert, more advanced kiter, it might be 15 to 20 kilometers. So if you're in your 9-meter kite at about 30 kilometers an hour, and the wind's now gone to, 60 kilometers an hour, well, it's actually gone up like 2 kite sizes. So you're going to be massively overpowered and you're going to feel a little bit, like you're just going to fly away on that kite. So don't get caught out. Environmentally, be aware what's going on around you. If you see these storm fronts coming in, then come in, land your kite on the beach, and either size down, wait for the storm front to go through, and go back out, or just pack up and go home for the day, right? So those are all the things that we need to talk about. So when we get to the beach, right, as I said, the first thing that you want to do is you want to see those kites up in the sky, right? But then you need to ask yourself, even though there's people kiting here today, is this beach suitable for me at my skill set level where I am in my progression for kiting? And if you go through this shoe and you find that the surface isn't good, the waves are too big, okay, that's not my day. You come down, you look at hazards, right? Oh, look, the launch area is not great here. There's lots of big rocks, or there might be, beach huts or things like that. You don't feel comfortable in launching and landing your kite in that spot. Well, that beach on that day, that's not you, right? Others, you get down the beach, there's loads of people on the beach, right? Even though it's windy, everybody's decided they're going to the beach, okay? There's no place that you feel safe launching and landing your kite around all those other people. Or there's just 100 kiters out here today, and it feels a little bit intimidating for you to go kiting. Environmentally, you get down here, you see some big storms coming towards you, right? Okay, that's not your day. So we're gonna say, if in doubt, don't go out, all right? And that just means that, you're not gonna go out, you're not gonna have a bad time, you're not gonna get your confidence knocked, and your progression is gonna be smooth and everyone's gonna be smiling. Okay, so that's site assessment. I'm Ant. Keep looking at the videos and the rest of the kite surfing tutorial, and we'll see you down the beach when you come for your lessons. Ciao.